Welcome to another Java Break with Basis, in which we take you from CUI to GUI to BUI, BUI being Basis's latest browser user interface that will be fully supported with BBJ 10. The agenda for today's session covers the introduction to the Basis product set. We'll talk about the Basis application clients, and then we'll have a discussion on what BUI exactly means. Then we'll do a demonstration of BUI in action, and then we'll discover and talk more about the BUI foundation and the technologies that underlie the concept of BUI. And we'll close with a summary of the topics that we've covered during this half-hour Java Break with Basis. Basis delivers CUI and GUI via our product set. The Pro 5 product set is a C-based interpreter for platform-independent, business-basic, character user interface applications. Visual Pro 5 is our Win32, our only platform-dependent product. It's a C-based interpreter for Windows platform. It's a business-basic character user interface and GUI user interface for applications. And then our flagship product is BBJ, Java-based interpreter for platform-independent, modern business-basic character user interface and graphical user interface applications. I stress the word modern. We've inherited all the legacy capabilities of Pro 5 and Visual Pro 5, but we've added all the modern capabilities of a fresh, object-oriented programming language. So if we consider those three core interpreters from Basis, let's have a look at the client side of the application. In the character user interface environment, we have terminals or terminal emulators. We have thin clients, be they BBJ thin client or third-party thin clients. And in the graphical user interface environment, we have the Fat Client Visual Pro 5 or BBJ, which could also be run in Fat Client mode. And we have the thin client BBJ, or again, third-party clients such as the Windows Terminal Services product. And now, very excitingly, we're adding the new BUI, the browser user interface, in which the browser becomes the client. So we're able to deliver GUI within the browser. That's our wafer-thin client. So what is the browser user interface? It's the thinnest of thin clients, as I've suggested, wafer-thin. It takes existing GUI applications and allows them to run with minor or no code changes within the browser. There's no JVM needed on the client. There's no interpreter on the client. What applications can I run in this new environment? Any GUI BBJ applications will run in the BUI environment. And that could include your Visual Pro 5 applications that you've converted to BBJ, the App Builder applications, so applications you've built either with GUI Builder or with App Builder. Applications delivered in our new Barista application framework, our data dictionary-based application development environment. And they could be your hand-coded mnemonic or resource-based applications that you've delivered over time in the GUI paradigm. So let's look more at the practical use of BUI. Let's have a look at a demonstration, and let's see BUI in action.
Today we're going to take a look at Basis's new browser user interface, or BUI as we call it. We're going to start off with a simple application called the package tracker. This application was written long ago and originally had a character user interface assigned to it. Since it was character-based, it brings up a screen, and we don't have the usual GUI controls such as buttons and checkboxes. Instead, the only way to interact with the program is to use the keyboard. In my case, I want to track some packages from the FedEx web service. So I'll start off by clicking the F3 button to use sample data, and then finally the F1 button to track the data. The program connects to the FedEx web service, gathers the information about those tracking numbers, and displays it on the screen. So that's how the program existed years ago with a character-based user interface. The next evolution of that program is the GUI version, or the graphical user interface version of the package tracking demo. In this case, a lot of the code is the same in the program. For example, the code that retrieves the information for the specified tracking numbers from the FedEx web service. However, the entire user interface has been updated. Now it's completely graphical, and we've got elements such as a menu bar, a list box, a checkbox, and a button. It's an event-driven program, which means that the program keeps track of what the user is doing. By clicking the track button, I indicate to the program that I want it to go out and retrieve the status for my packages. So now we have our customary graphical user interface. What's the next step? The next step is running that in BUI, or in a browser, using the browser as the user interface. By clicking here, we'll run the BUI version. You'll notice that the program looks pretty much the same. The main difference is, instead of being in its own window, it's now contained in a tab in my browser. In this case, I'm using Google Chrome for my browser. Other than that, though, it still looks and acts pretty much the same. I still click on the checkbox to use sample data, and I indicate that I want it to track my package by clicking on the track button. So the program looks and acts pretty similarly, except one of the main differences is that the screen is pretty basic. For example, it's plain white, and the application is shown in the upper left-hand corner. This is by design, as it gives you, the developer, an enormous amount of flexibility for how you want to display your applications. For example, we could run them in what we call a wrapped fashion. This is the same program, except now we've run it in a wrapped format. By wrapped format, we mean that instead of just running the application in a blank HTML page in the browser, instead what we've done is we've created a customized container for that application. We've written our own HTML, and at the top here we have links to other pages. We have a customized background. We also have customized images in layers such as the Basis and Tecon logos. And we've provided a container for our BUI application. So everything you see here from the menu bar onto the clear button is part of the application. This window here is the container, and we can customize that via HTML and CSS and present our application in any way we want to brand our products or to give them a corporate identity. The program works in exactly the same way. By checking the checkbox and clicking the button, it runs as you would expect. So that's our package tracking demo. And we can see how that it's gone from a character user interface to a GUI user interface to the exact same program, except in this time in a browser. So by BUI, we mean that the program is going to be displayed in a browser, even though it's the exact same GUI code that was written years ago. We've got another example of this. It's our customer maintenance program. This one started off life as a GUI program because it's an app builder project. This means that we designed the resource in App Builder, and then App Builder generated all of the code for the application. We start off by running a traditional sysGUI version of it. And you can see that this application contains a variety of different types of controls. In addition to the file menu that we've seen before, we also have a tab control. And within some of the tabs, we can see that we have other advanced controls, such as a tree control, drop-down list boxes, text boxes, password screens. We even have radio buttons and checkboxes. At the bottom of the application, you can see that we've got a BBJ Navigator control that allows us to scroll through all of the customers in my Chili Company database. On the status bar, we make use of some of the new functions in BBJ that give you, the programmer, an idea of what type of environment your application is running in. For example, here we're using the info function to find out that BBJ is running in a thin client deployment. We also know the operating system that it's running on, in this case Windows. Let's compare that to a BUI version of the exact same program. After launching the program in the browser, you can see that it behaves the exact same way, although this time in our status bar, it denotes that we're running in a GWT, or a Google Web Toolkit browser. GWT is the technology behind BASIS's BUI. As far as the operating system that it's running in this case, since it's running in a browser, the only thing that matters is which browser it's running in. So it's indicating that I'm running in Google Chrome. If I happen to run it in Microsoft Internet Explorer, it would display Internet Explorer there on the status bar. The program runs the same way in BUI as it did in the normal traditional SysGUI. We can scroll through our customers by clicking on the BBJ Navigator. We can select different tabs, drop down list boxes, and even view tree information. So that's an example of an app builder generated application. What about something a little bit more advanced? Here we have our add-on customer maintenance screen, which is a barista-built application running standalone. By standalone, we mean that you'll see only that window for the application, not the entire barista application framework. The customer maintenance screen comes up. It prompts me to assign the next customer ID in a pop-up window. And from there on, I can start scrolling through the customers by clicking on the navigation tool buttons. By selecting another tab, I can take a look at distribution codes, for example. And view product locations. This same program can be run in BUI as well. Here we've got the add-on customer maintenance application running in BUI. We can see its version of the pop-up screen asking me the question. And I can scroll through customers by displaying the next record and view other pieces of information by clicking on the tabs. If I want to check out the product locations, a double click will bring up that window. So you can see it's relatively easy for me to deploy my applications over the web. My customers just need a browser that's capable of JavaScript. And I don't have to learn or know any HTML, JavaScript, a new CGI language like Perl, or even CSS in order to do it. Not only that, my customers don't even need to have Java installed. They just need a browser that's capable of JavaScript. So let's take a look at another application. We've got a demo program called the Customer File Manipulation. This is one that we've used in the past in TechCon to make changes to the Chili Company customer data file. By selecting one of the options on the right, I can choose to do either read records, write records, or remove records from my customer file. I can do it via the file system, external or internal SQL. By clicking on the checkbox, it shows a preview of the code that will be executed. By clicking on the Execute Code button, it runs through the sample code, reads a random number out of the Chili Company customer data file, and displays the execution results. So by clicking on it rapidly, I can view some of the random records in the file. We can run that exact same program without any modifications in BUI. Check the checkbox to do a read record. It gives me a preview of the code that will be executed. And in a similar fashion, clicking on the Execute Code button will show us records for the customers. If I click on it rapidly, it'll scroll through the customers very, very quickly. We've got one more example, and that's a POP email client that utilizes secure sockets to communicate to a mail server. This is a program that we showed at TechCon a few years ago, and it demonstrates using secure sockets to connect to the Gmail mail server and grab my email. This utilizes secure sockets so that the information that's sent over the internet will be encrypted and not available to anyone to read. All I have to do is provide a login and a password. By default, I'm going to retrieve 15 messages, and when clicking on the Connect button, it gives us a status in the status bar, and it lets me know that it's retrieving the first 15 messages, ascending by date. Here's that exact same code, unmodified, running in BUI. Now that we're running in BUI, we can pass in the same information, click the same button, and it reacts in much the same manner. It still communicates via secure sockets to the POP mail server at Gmail over port 995. The only difference is that the user interface now is entirely contained in my browser. We're going to go back and take another look at the customer maintenance program. This time, however, we're going to view it on a mobile device. In our case, we're going to view it with Safari on an Apple iPhone. I'll bring up my Bookmarks menu and click on my saved customer maintenance. This brings up the same application that we ran a few minutes ago, although this time it's running on a mobile browser. In the status bar on the left-hand side, we see the familiar GWT browser indication. On the right-hand side, though, it says that it's running in mobile Safari. This means that the BBJ application knows the output resolution of the target device and, if desired, can customize the output accordingly. For example, it's possible to create a mobile version of an application simply by detecting the display type and adjusting the fonts or resources or window size as necessary. Other than that, the program runs exactly as we'd expect. Clicking on the BBJ Navigator button scrolls through the customers. Tapping or clicking on any control, such as a tab control, brings up the child window associated with that tab control. One of the differences that you may notice are that some of the controls are customized with their look and feel according to the target platform. For example, what looked like a simple drop-down list box in Windows now looks and acts a little bit differently on the iPhone because it looks and acts more like a native application on the iPhone. By clicking on the disclosure arrow, it brings up the typical iPhone picker control that we're all used to.
So we've seen BUI running on various browser environments, from a mobile device to a desktop browser of your choice. So what's the next step? Well, let's talk about the foundation. What is the technical foundation to the browser user interface? And the secret is the Google Web Toolkit. I'll talk more about what the Google Web Toolkit is, but suffice to say that it allows us to deliver cross-platform and cross-browser applications. The technologies, I've said read and forget. Just understand that all these technologies underlie the Google Web Toolkit, but you don't really have to concern yourselves with them. As is often the case, Basis takes care of the details of that environment. But suffice to say that we cover the components of the HTML controls, Web 2.0, the interactive nature of delivering applications across the web, AJAX, the concept of having a stateful application and having dynamic interaction with the application over the browser, utilizing JavaScript, the object-oriented scripting language, and using cascading style sheets for the look and feel of the application. So all those technologies make up the components that are embedded within the Google Web Toolkit. But why the Google Web Toolkit? So let me use Google's words. Google says, writing web apps today is a tedious and error-prone process. Developers can spend 90% of their time working around browser quirks. In addition, building, reusing, and maintaining large JavaScript code bases and AJAX components can be difficult and fragile. Google Web Toolkit eases this burden by allowing developers to quickly build and maintain complex yet highly performant JavaScript front-end applications in the Java programming language. So that statement is particularly significant, and of course, a great opportunity for us at Basis, as our BBJ product is written in Java. So what does that allow us to do? So Google delivers GWT or GWT, bringing Java to the web. Basis binds BBJ with Java and GWT to deliver your application. That allows you to focus on your business applications and let Basis take care of the delivery mechanisms, the deployment capabilities of GWT, BBJ, and Java. So let's compare and contrast some of the functionality that BUI can now deliver versus probably our most popular deployment choice, the BBJ Thin Client, probably delivered over Java Web Start, which really eases and facilitates the burden of having to deploy a GUI application. Well, firstly, one should consider what you don't have to do with BUI. There's no need to install a JVM on the client. You don't have to check to see if the jars have been updated. You don't have to wait for jars to download. You don't have to deal with clearing the client's jar cache in case you've updated a new jar. You don't have to sign and list jars to deploy. So BUI gives us the capabilities of bringing BBJ to the web. Writing BBJ is certainly a lot easier than writing a web page. So you can access Basis and third-party relational database management system data as usual. Your data-bound controls make filling out forms a snap. It's easy to deliver flexible validation without having to write client-side JavaScript. And you can do this all with your familiar language that gives you extensive syntax capabilities. It gives you far better error handling, and you can leverage any existing code and libraries that you have in your current applications. It can be considered to be Ajax without the pain. There's one final demonstration I'd like to share with you, and in a bit of a departure from our prior Java breaks, I'm going to be joined by Lawrence Guinea, our Senior Account Manager, who's going to show us one of our business applications that we use at Basis, and in fact that many of you who order Basis products use every day. So we'll see that in action in BUI. So here's Lawrence in his Chrome browser. He's going to select the URL for the BCommerce order entry application, and we'll select a username or customer number and password and log into the order entry application in BCommerce. And now let me hand over to Lawrence to take you from this point forward.
As you can see from the main screen, we have a number of different controls. I have some buttons, some images, and I also have some group boxes. For this demo, I will be upgrading an existing license. So I will go to the Upgrade to BPL. On this window, we have more buttons, some static text, and some list boxes. Now I don't remember what serial number I need to use, but I know it begins with Pro 5. So I'm going to enter Pro 5 and click Scan Next. A list of serial numbers beginning with Pro 5 comes up in numerical order, and it just so happens the first one is the one I want. So I will click the Add button and then continue to go to the Modify screen. On this window, I can now choose the appropriate option using the available list buttons. As you can see, some of these list buttons have already been auto-populated. You will also notice that there are some other controls, such as an input D and a pop-up date box. I'm going to go to the pop-up date box and change the SAM expiration date to May 25th of 2011. I'm now satisfied with that. I have my list price, and I will now proceed to add to cart. Now that I'm in the shopping cart, again, you see some group boxes, some images, some buttons, and we now also have a grid. And you can see the order that I just placed is in the shopping cart. I'm now satisfied with my order, and I'm going to go ahead and normally proceed to checkout. In this particular case, though, I'm not quite sure that I want to purchase that serial number after all. I may have a sufficient number of serial numbers in my client base. So I'm going to return to main. And I'm going to go ahead and go to account information so I can look up my serial number list. Under account information, I now have a few options. The option I'm going to go to is email reports. I'm going to click on the email reports button, and yet another control is going to pop up. In this case, it's a modal window. And on the modal window, there's also some radio buttons. I'm going to select the active serial number report. I'm satisfied with the email address, and I'm going to click OK. I now get a message box telling me the report has been queued, and it will be processed and sent to me in a few minutes. I'll click OK. I'm now returned to the account information window, and I'll click on Return to Main.
Thanks, Lawrence. So there we have it, a great example of a business application running within a browser. If we hadn't told you, you probably wouldn't realize that this was running in a browser. So in summary, what have we covered today? We've seen that we can take a web application requirement and fulfill it with a GUI BBJ application. We can write it once and run anywhere. We've truly extended that paradigm to the new cloud computing, browser-driven application delivery mechanism. There's no JVM on the client required. And any client hardware that's browser capable can deliver your application. That means it's inexpensive. It could be a mobile device, a smartphone. It could be any minimum configuration of hardware that supports a browser. So what do you need? You need to have a GUI BBJ application and a browser, and you're ready to go.